Hi everybody. Today we're tackling what wasn't really that bad at all actually. It just made me nervous, therefore I had lumped it in with the with all of the scary things, right? So I had lumped it in as one of the inner demons. So what we're talking about is the cabin heat. Here you can see I'm working on putting one of the cans, what affectionately is called cans, onto the exhaust here. So these heat muffs come from Veterans Exhaust. They don't actually make them; another company makes them, but they package them up with their exhausts. And normally, the cabin heat works like this. There's a 2-inch intake from the front right baffle that goes to a heat muff, just like this one, that's on the straight part of the number 1 exhaust, which then links to the number 3 exhaust, and there's a can around that one as well. So by the time that air leaves at number 3, it's good and hot. Then it's just a matter of putting it through a splitter and then going to each cabin heat entry down by your feet. All right, right? No big deal. Problem is with the trombone exhaust, the number 3 and number 1 exhausts on the side aren't straight at all, so they don't fit. So instead what you have to do is you have to fit it here, which I have so crappily pointed the camera to. You can see I'm trying to fit it. It has to go onto the straight part out the back and the sides. All right, no big deal. So what are we going to have to do instead? All right, well, one, the 2-inch scat tubing entry in the front really can't be changed at this point, nor do I have any inclination or desire to create some kind of weirdo port in the cowling, because who knows what the dynamics of that would change. So instead, we're just going to make it work as best we can. There, the 2-inch part, you can see I've got a big old long piece of 2-inch scat tubing. And the idea is that we are going to secure it in a couple of places as it travels down and backwards towards the center of the engine, where we are going to have a little aluminum T, a 2-inch T, and then that T is going to go and push scat tubing to both cans, one on the left, one on the right, and then which you can already see, there is a piece of scat tubing up plugged into the right side where the cabin heat goes in. It is then just a matter of taking a little bit of a loop of that scat tubing and connecting it like that. Essentially. So you might ask, well, how do you secure that piece of 2-inch scat tubing coming from the front? Well, that's a good question. So what we're doing is we're actually using, and I'll show a picture of it here at the end of the video, we're going to use a pipe clamp or an Adele clamp, and we're actually going to Adele clamp it and put it on the bolt, the lower right-hand bolt of the snorkel fitting to the air intake of the engine. Because it's right next to it. It goes right by it. So I thought, all right, well, you know what I'll do? I'll just put a 2-inch Adele clamp here, because this is lightweight scat tubing. It might vibrate a little bit, but the mass is very, very low. So the momentum or inertia that it's creating, which is mass times velocity squared, it's going to be very, very low. So I'm not worried about that thing shaking like the snorkel loose or anything like that. And then it's a matter of clamping the T, and we're doing the same thing. We're doing a Adele clamp, only the only place that I could find, unfortunately, to Adele clamp that onto was the throttle bracket that I'd made, the throttle cable bracket that I'd made that sits on the bottom of the engine. So in order to sort of strengthen that up, we are going to wind up putting a little bit of a doubler on the bottom of that, which is no big deal. That way, that little piece of scat tubing has 2 big connections as it goes back. Well, technically, the T is connected to the throttle cable bracket, but still. It's a good location because, one, it's more or less under the very center of the plane, so you don't wind up putting any weight left and right. It's a good attachment point, and there's more than enough clearance for the baffle, and the throttle cable doesn't get interfered with in any way, shape, or form. All right, here's a picture of the bottom of the plane now. You can see there's the tubing going back. There's the secure Adele clamp, there's the T, and then you can see both cans. Now that this is in place, which is fine, now we actually need to increase the size of the cutouts for the cowl on the bottom, because now these cans kind of want to stick out. And once you see that, well, we'll talk about whether or not we actually need to put the fairings on the bottom of the cowl. It's looking like it, but that's a future thing. All right. Thank you for joining me, everyone. See you soon.